You did what with the human juveniles? First speaker Kazat's peripheral sensory filaments went from their usual iridescent blue to a shocked pale white. We secured them in containment cell block Delta 7. Second speaker Tarax replied, mandibles clicking with what might have been pride. Our initial reconnaissance suggested they were prime examples of their species' developmental stage. Perfect for studying their... Release them, now! The first speaker's voice carried that particular harmonic that made junior officers' exoskeletons vibrate uncomfortably. But first speaker, the research potential... Have you completely lost your neural capacity? Did your last molt leave you with the judgment of a brain-addled Quangax? KZ's sensory filaments were now cycling through warning colors faster than a malfunctioning quantum signal array. These are human children. Human children. Trax's antenna drooped slightly. I fail to see the issue, first speaker. They are merely immature specimens of, oh, by the eternal void. Kazed activated the central command holodisplay with a sharp gesture. Computer, access historical database. Display file H2998, the Centaurian incident. The air between them filled with floating text and images. Tarax's compound eyes widened as he absorbed the information. But that's... His mandibles worked silently for a moment. That can't be accurate. An entire battle fleet? Destroyed, because one human child scraped their knee while playing near a Centaurian research facility. Kazid's primary appendages gestured expansively. The humans traced the child's distress pheromones to the facility, assumed the worst, and... well, you can see the results. The holographic display showed the wreckage of what had once been the pride of the Centaurian scientific fleet, now little more than orbital debris around what used to be their primary research world. That's not even the worst of it, Kazd continued, bringing up another file. The Proximan disaster. One missing human juvenile. Just one. The Proximans didn't even have anything to do with it. The child had simply wandered off during a diplomatic reception. But because they delayed the humans' search efforts with bureaucratic procedures, he let the images speak for themselves. Tarax's exoskeleton had taken on a distinctly grayish tinge. But we followed all proper containment protocols. The specimens are perfectly safe and... Specimens? Kaz's voice rose to frequencies that made the command center's crystal displays resonate. Listen very carefully, second speaker. Humans are classified as a Class X species for a reason. They are the only known sentients who have evolved as pack-bonding pursuit predators. The only ones who formed their earliest social structures around cooperative child-rearing. The only species in known space who will literally die to protect not just their own offspring, but any juvenile of their kind. The holodisplay shifted again, showing footage from various human entertainment media. Tarax watched in growing horror as scene after scene depicted humans performing impossible feats of strength and endurance. Breaking through walls, lifting vehicles, fighting off dozens of armed opponents, all to rescue endangered young. But surely that's dramatized for entertainment purposes. Oh, if only. Kezd pulled up another file. Scientific analysis suggests their entertainment media actually understates their capabilities when their young are threatened. Something about their endocrine system goes into overdrive. They exhibit temporary immunity to pain, vastly enhanced strength, and a complete disregard for their own survival. And that's just the physical aspects. New data streamed across the display. Tactical analyses, psychological profiles, incident reports. Track's antenna drooped further with each new piece of information. Their information networks are already lighting up with reports of the missing children. Kazd continued. Their response ships will be here within hours. If those children are not safely returned to their families before then, with full medical documentation showing they were unharmed. He let the sentence hang. I'll order their immediate release, Track said, already backing toward the door. Full medical scan, documentation of their perfect health. Maybe some treats from the commissary. And Tarax? Kezd called after him. When you release them, do not use the word specimen. In fact, don't use any scientific terminology at all. The humans tend to react poorly to that. As Tarax scurried away, Kez turned back to the command displays, watching the approaching human vessels. Their energy signatures were already showing the distinctive patterns of weapons charging up. He could only hope they'd release the children in time. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Tracks showing previously untapped reserves of diplomatic skill, or perhaps just survival instinct, managed to turn the release into something resembling a friendly cultural exchange. The children, who had apparently thought they were on some sort of special tour, were returned with bags full of alien snacks and trinkets, chattering excitedly about their awesome space adventure. The human warships, their weapon signatures still hot enough to make the sensor operators nervous, maintained their positions just outside weapons range. The communication channels stayed open, filled with deceptively polite inquiries about the children's welfare, and barely veiled threats about the consequences of any harm coming to them. It wasn't until the last child was safely aboard their transport, waving goodbye to their new alien friends, that Kazed allowed himself to relax slightly. The human ships began powering down their weapons, though they maintained their protective formation around the transport. First speaker? Trax had returned to the command center, his exoskeleton still showing stress patterns. I've been reviewing the historical database about human children. And I found references to something called field trips. Apparently it's a common educational practice where human juveniles are taken to various locations for learning purposes. His mandibles clicked thoughtfully. If we were to establish proper protocols, perhaps coordinate with their educational authorities. No. But with proper documentation and parental consent forms, absolutely not. Kez's sensory filaments had started cycling through warning colors again. Did you not learn anything from today? But the research potential. Terrax. Kazed's voice had taken on that particular harmonic again. Let me explain something. Humans have a saying. Fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. Do you know what happens when someone fools them regarding their children? Trax's antenna drooped. No? Neither do we, because no species has ever survived doing it twice. Kaze turned back to the command displays. Now please go update our contact protocols to include a new primary directive. Under no circumstances are we to interact with human juveniles without at least 3 layers of official documentation and enough human supervisors to form a small army. As Terrax finally left, Kaze watched the human ships escort their precious cargo away. He made a mental note to recommend Terrax for reassignment, perhaps to something safer, like studying black holes or experimenting with unstable antimatter. The humans had sent one final message before departing. Thanks for the lovely tour. The kids had a great time, looking forward to future cultural exchanges. Kazet knew a warning when he heard one. The message might as well have said, "We're watching you. Always." He began drafting his report to the High Council, starting with a recommendation for updating the human species classification. Perhaps Class X would be more appropriate. Or maybe they needed an entirely new classification. Something that properly conveyed the unique mixture of territorial pack bonding, pursuit predator instincts, and the absolutely terrifying lengths they would go to for their young. As he worked, he could have sworn he heard distant human laughter echoing through the station's corridors. The children had enjoyed their adventure, completely oblivious to how close their unknowing hosts had come to triggering an interstellar incident. Kiz made another note. Install better soundproofing in all diplomatic quarters. The sound of human children at play, while apparently harmless to them, did unfortunate things to the nerves of species who had learned to fear it. The humans had a phrase for situations like this, he recalled. Something about playing with fire. Kuz thought it was typically human that they would have a common saying about casually handling plasma-hot danger. Even more typical that they would consider it sound advice for children. He finished his report with a final recommendation. Establish a new diplomatic protocol specifically for human children. They would call it the Look But Don't Touch Directive. It had a nice, simple ring to it that he thought the humans would appreciate. Besides, he mused, watching the last energy signatures of the human ships fade from the sensors, it was better than his first choice. Don't anger the scary monkey parents. In the days that followed, the station received an unusual package from Earth. It contained what appeared to be hundreds of colorful drawings, clearly made by human children, depicting their awesome alien adventure. The artwork showed the station's crew as friendly, smiling figures, despite the biological impossibility of most of those smiles, surrounded by hearts and stars. Kazd had them framed and displayed prominently in the station's main diplomatic reception area, partly because it seemed like good politics, but mostly because he knew it would make any future visitors think twice about making the same mistake his crew had. Nothing said, proceed with extreme caution. Quite like evidence that you had once accidentally acquired human children and lived to tell about it. The final drawing in the collection, Pride of Place in the center, showed a group of human children and alien crew members sharing what appeared to be ice cream. Beneath it, in the careful handwriting of a young human, were the words, "Best field trip ever. When can we come back?" Kest had the drawing sealed behind blast-proof glass, along with a small placard that read, "Never, for the love of all that's holy, never." The humans who visited the station seemed to find this hilarious. The non-human diplomats just seemed relieved someone else had learned this particular lesson the hard way. And somewhere in the station's secure archives, filed under Incidents We Must Never Repeat, was Tarax's original research proposal, now stamped with a new classification. Absolutely not. Are you insane? It became something of a tradition for new crew members to be shown this file during their orientation. The resulting nervous laughter and occasional molting was considered a small price to pay for preventing future incidents. After all, as humans themselves often said, better safe than sorry. Especially when dealing with the only known species in the galaxy who considered going completely berserk to protect random children, a normal and reasonable response to potential threats. 20 cycles later, the incident had become required study at the Galactic Diplomatic Academy. Kazd, now serving as senior lecturer in human relations, found himself addressing a fresh batch of eager xenodiplomats about what had become known as the field trip protocol. The fundamental error, he explained to the assembled students, their various sensory organs fixed attentively upon him, wasn't in the action itself, but in our conceptual framework for understanding human protective instincts. We approached it from a purely biological perspective. Juveniles as specimens, development as a measurable process. We failed to grasp the deeper mimetic structures at play. A hive mind student raised 3 of its thought tendrils. But surely their response was disproportionate. The children were never in any danger. Ah, Kezd's sensory filaments rippled with academic enthusiasm. That's precisely the cognitive disconnect we need to examine. In human psychology, potential harm and actual harm trigger nearly identical response patterns when it comes to their young. It's not about what did happen, but what could have happened. He brought up a holographic display showing brain scans of various species' responses to juvenile distress signals. The human readings were almost off the scale. Notice the activation patterns in the human limbic system. When they detect a threat to any child, not just their own offspring, mind you, their neural architecture essentially reconstructs itself. They enter what they call mama bear mode or papa wolf mode, anthropomorphizing their own protective instincts through predator archetypes. The lecture hall filled with the soft sounds of students taking notes, their various appendages and neural interfaces working frantically to capture every detail. But here's what makes humans truly unique, Kez continued, bringing up new data streams. They've developed entire cultural and social structures around this protective instinct. Their entertainment, their legislation, their educational systems, all of it is infused with this fundamental drive to protect and nurture the young. Not just their own species either. Show a human a juvenile of any species, and their protective instincts activate. He switched the display to show various human media clips. Humans rescuing alien children in fiction. Humans protesting for alien juvenile rights. Humans establishing interspecies orphanages. This is why the field trip protocol isn't just about preventing diplomatic incidents. It's about understanding a species that has turned protective instinct into an art form. Humans don't just protect their young. They've built an entire civilization around the concept of nurturing the next generation. Any next generation. A crystalline entity chimed melodiously from the back row. Is this why humans are often chosen as guardians for endangered species breeding programs? Exactly, Kezit's filaments brightened. Humans have the unique ability to form protective bonds with virtually any juvenile life form. They've turned what was originally a species-specific survival trait into a universal nurturing capacity. It's quite remarkable from an evolutionary perspective. He brought up one final image. The framed children's drawings from the station, still on display after all these cycles. These drawings represent more than just a diplomatic close call. They show us something fundamental about human nature. Even in a situation we thought of as a potential crisis, the children themselves were forming bonds, creating art, sharing experiences. The human's response wasn't just about protection. It was about preserving that capacity for joy and discovery. The lecture hall was silent for a moment, various species processing this information through their respective cognitive frameworks. Your assignment, Kezd continued, is to analyze the incident from multiple perspectival frameworks. I want you to consider not just the diplomatic implications, but the deeper questions it raises about interspecies understanding, protective instincts, and the evolution of social behaviors. And yes, this will be on the final examination. As the students filed out, Kezat noticed a small delegation of human diplomats who had been observing from the back of the hall. They were smiling, an expression he had learned to read quite well over the cycles. "Interesting lecture," one of them said, approaching the podium. "Though you left out the part about the ice cream." Kezat's filaments rippled with amusement. "Ah yes, the famous universal peace offering, as your species calls it. I found it's better to let each batch of students discover that particular aspect of human diplomacy on their own." Speaking of which, the human continued. "We're planning an actual supervised field trip next month. Properly documented, of course. Would you be interested in being a guest lecturer?" Kest felt his exoskeleton tingle with a mix of anxiety and excitement. "Will there be ice cream?" "There's always ice cream," the human laughed. "It's in the protocol." And indeed it was. Page 47, Section 12, Paragraph 3 of the official field trip protocol. All supervised xenocultural exchanges involving human juveniles must include appropriate dietary provisions, including but not limited to ice cream or equivalent frozen confections. Kazed had written that section himself. After all, if there was one thing he'd learned about humans, it was that the quickest way to turn a potential diplomatic crisis into a successful cultural exchange was through their favorite frozen dessert. That and never ever using the word specimen around their children. Xenopsychological analysis. Case Study 47. B subject. Human protective response mechanisms. Classification. Critical understanding required. Author. First speaker. Cust. Returns. Galactic date. 47.235.89. The holographic text floated in the air before the Galactic Council's Special Committee on Emergent Species Behaviors. Kust, now serving as both senior lecturer and special advisor, felt his sensory filaments twitch as he began his presentation. "Distinguished council members," he began, "what we're examining today goes beyond mere biological imperatives or social constructs. The human protective response represents something unprecedented in galactic society. A complete integration of instinct, culture, and technological capability that fundamentally reshapes our understanding of species development." The council chamber's crystalline walls shifted, displaying complex data patterns that represented centuries of xenopsychological research. Kest gestured, bringing forward a particular cluster of information. "Consider the standard evolutionary model of species advancement. Typically, as a species develops higher technology, their basic biological imperatives become increasingly mediated by cultural and technological frameworks. They become, in essence, more civilized, more removed from their primitive instincts." A quantum consciousness representative pulsed with skepticism. "Is this not the natural progression of all sentient life?" "That's precisely what makes humans unique," Kezit replied. "They haven't suppressed their protective instincts. They've amplified them, enhanced them, integrated them into every level of their civilization, from their basic social structures to their most advanced technologies." He brought up new data streams, showing human technological development alongside their evolving social structures. "Look at their space vessel designs. Every human ship, from the smallest personal transport to their largest military vessels, includes protocols and systems specifically designed around protecting juveniles. Emergency pods sized for children. Educational facilities built into military vessels. Play areas in diplomatic cruisers. They've literally built their expansion into space around their drive to protect and nurture the young." A hive mind representative extruded a questioning tendril. "But surely this represents a weakness, a vulnerability that could be exploited?" The chamber's temperature dropped several degrees as Kazet's exoskeleton shifted to warning patterns. "That would be an extremely unfortunate tactical error. Allow me to demonstrate why." The displays shifted to show various historical incidents. The Centaurian incident, the Proximan disaster, and dozens of others, each showing the same pattern, a perceived threat to human children, followed by a response that defied all logical prediction. Humans don't just protect their young. They've turned that protection into an art form, a science, and a fundamental principle of their civilization. They've developed technologies specifically designed to channel and amplify their protective instincts. Their AIs are programmed with child protection protocols that mirror human protective responses. Their weapon systems include specific parameters for detecting and responding to threats against juveniles. He brought up another display, this one showing human neural patterns during various states of protective response. "What makes this truly remarkable is how they've managed to maintain the raw power of their instinctive response while simultaneously developing increasingly sophisticated frameworks for channeling it." They haven't become less protective as they've advanced. They've become more efficient at expressing that protection. A crystalline entity chimed thoughtfully. This seems to contradict standard models of species development. Exactly. Khazet's filaments brightened with academic enthusiasm. Humans have developed what we're calling a recursive protection framework. Their protective instincts drive their technological development, which in turn enhances their protective capabilities, creating a positive feedback loop that... He paused, noticing a subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. A human observer had entered quietly during his presentation. Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the leading human experts on interspecies psychology, was watching with what he recognized as an amused expression. Perhaps, she suggested, we could demonstrate rather than just theorize? Khazet's filaments rippled with curiosity. What did you have in mind? Well, she said, stepping forward, we have a group of human children visiting the Galactic Science Academy next week. Properly documented, of course. Why not let the Council observe human protective instincts in their natural positive state? The chamber erupted in a cacophony of various species' expressions of surprise, concern, and interest. Kaz noticed that several Council members' biological warning systems had activated automatically. Don't worry, Dr. Chen laughed, recognizing the signs of alien anxiety. We've gotten much better at this since the field trip incident. We've even developed special training programs for non-human species who want to interact safely with human children. We call it How Not to Trigger the Mama Bear Protocol. Khazet felt his exoskeleton relax slightly. I assume ice cream is still mandatory? Oh, absolutely, she grinned. It's written into galactic law now, isn't it? Section 47, paragraph 12. All sanctioned interactions with human juveniles must include appropriate comfort provisions, including but not limited to frozen confections of various varieties. The council chamber's mood shifted as various species processed this information through their respective cognitive frameworks. The idea that humans had essentially codified ice cream into interstellar law seemed to perfectly encapsulate the unique blend of protectiveness and pragmatism that made humans so fascinating. Very well, the council chief declared, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated careful consideration. We shall observe this demonstration, but first Speaker Khazetmust be present. Oh? Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. As an expert consultant? No. The chief's lights pulsed with what might have been humor. As the only non-human who has accidentally acquired human children and lived to develop proper protocols about it. Khazet's filaments cycled through embarrassment patterns, but he had to admit the chief had a point. Sometimes the best way to understand a phenomenon was to survive it. And so plans were made for what would become known as the Great Galactic Show and Tell. An event that would fundamentally change how the galaxy understood human protective instincts, and coincidentally, introduce 17 new species to the concept of ice cream. Document classification, xenosociological event analysis. Subject, the Great Galactic Show and Tell incident, filed by Collective Consciousness Archive, Meta-Historical Division, Temporal Index, Post-Human Integration Era, Cycle 47, K236. The crystalline walls of the Grand Observatory pulsed with quantum-encoded memories, as the gathered species prepared to witness what would become known as the convergence of innocence, though humans, with their characteristic directness, simply called it Show and Tell Day. Khazetstood at the intersection of 17 different gravity wells, each calibrated to the comfortable range of a different species' juveniles. The humans had insisted on including young representatives from every major spacefaring race, arguing that true understanding required more than mere observation. The thing about children, Dr. Chen had explained during the preparation phase, is that they haven't yet learned to build walls between species. They see with hearts unburdened by evolutionary baggage. The Quantum Consciousness Collective thrummed with skepticism. Hearts are inefficient organic pumps. How can they perceive? A human child, overhearing this, had simply laughed and offered the quantum entity a crayon drawing of what appeared to be a rainbow-colored probability wave. The entity's confusion frequencies shifted to something approaching wonder as it analyzed the child's intuitive representation of quantum uncertainty principles. Now, as the event properly began, Khazet watched the impossible unfold through multiple dimensional perspectives. In one gravity well, a hive-mind larva was teaching human children the complex dance language of collective thought, their movements creating patterns that rippled through the psychic ether. Nearby, a young crystalline entity was learning the human game of patty cake, its facets refracting light in harmony with the children's rhythmic clapping. A group of quantum younglings, existing in multiple probability states, were somehow playing hide-and-seek with human children who seemed completely unfazed by their quantum superposition. Remarkable, isn't it? Dr. Chen materialized beside Kezd, her voice carrying undertones of both professional satisfaction and maternal pride. Watch what happens next. A minor incident erupted in one of the gravity wells. A young crystalline entity had accidentally shifted its resonance frequency, causing momentary distress. Before any of the adult observers could react, the response pattern that emerged defied all predicted models. The human children, operating on pure instinct, formed a protective circle around their crystalline friend. But they weren't alone. Every juvenile present, regardless of species, moved to help. Hive mind larvae extended comfort tendrils. Quantum younglings collapsed their probability waves to provide stable emotional support. Even the youngest observers seemed to share the humans' protective instincts. This, Dr. Chen said softly, is what we've been trying to explain. The protective instinct isn't just human. It's universal. We've just optimized it. Kezd's sensory filaments recorded the phenomenon from multiple spectral ranges as the incident resolved itself through a complex network of interspecies comfort mechanisms. And of course, ice cream. The frozen confection appears to function as a universal translator of comfort, noted a hovering data sphere from the Galactic Archives. Perhaps we should analyze its quantum properties. Or, suggested a human child, offering the sphere a spoonful of chocolate swirl. You could just try it? The resulting data burst as the sphere processed. Its first taste of ice cream would later be compiled into 17 different doctoral theses on interspecies sensory experience. But the true breakthrough came during the show-and-tell portion itself. Each child, regardless of species, brought something precious to share. The presentations transcended traditional communication barriers. A hive mind larva shared a sequence of collective memories, which the human children somehow interpreted as a story about family. A quantum youngling demonstrated probability manipulation, which the other children immediately turned into a game involving quantum bubble blowing. A human girl showed her favorite stuffed animal, a plush representation of a terrestrial ursine, which sparked a fascinating discussion about comfort objects across species. The crystalline entity child shared a harmony sequence that made the observatory's walls resonate with pure joy. Kezd, watching through all available sensory spectrums, realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The emergence of a pan-species understanding of nurture and protection, filtered through the unbiased perspectives of the young. We've been approaching it wrong, he murmured, his scientific detachment crumbling under the weight of revelation. We've been studying human protective instincts as if they were a unique evolutionary adaptation. But what if they're actually a universal constant that humans have simply remembered more clearly than the rest of us? Dr. Chen smiled. Now you're getting it. Watch this. She initiated what the humans called a group photo, an attempt to capture all participants in a single moment of time-space. The resulting image, recorded across multiple dimensional frequencies, showed something extraordinary. The traditional barriers between species, physical, psychological, and quantum, had temporarily dissolved. In that frozen moment, there were no humans or aliens, no different species or evolutionary paths. There were just children, and those who protected them. This, Dr. Chen said, gesturing to the scene before them, is why we're so protective. Not because it's our unique trait, but because we remember what every species once knew, that the future walks on small feet, swims with tiny fins, floats on quantum probability waves, or glides on juvenile crystalline facets. The Galactic Council's data recorders struggled to capture the full implications. How do you quantify the rediscovery of a universal truth? How do you measure the moment when multiple species remember something their ancestors knew before the stars grew cold? Kezd found himself adding a new section to his xenopsychological analysis. Perhaps the true significance of human protective instincts lies not in their uniqueness, but in their ability to awaken similar instincts in others. They have not evolved beyond their basic drives. They have evolved to help others remember their own. As the event wound down, children of all species exchanged what humans called friendship bracelets, physical tokens that somehow managed to exist in all relevant dimensional phases simultaneously. The quantum younglings found this particularly impressive. How did you account for probability wave collapse? One asked its human friend. Oh, that's easy, the child replied. Friendship doesn't care about quantum states. Kezd recorded this exchange with special interest. Perhaps, he mused, The humans' greatest gift to galactic civilization wasn't their technology or their protective instincts, but their children's ability to make the impossible seem perfectly natural. The event concluded with what humans called a group hug, a physical expression of affection that, against all known laws of physics, managed to include even the non-corporeal participants. As the various families departed through their respective dimensional portals, Cadet found himself adding one final note to his analysis. Warning to future xenosociologists. Do not attempt to apply standard scientific frameworks to human children. They will simply smile and show you why your frameworks need more colors and probably some glitter. Dr. Chen, reading over his shoulder, laughed. You know, for someone who once accidentally kidnapped human children, you've developed quite an insight into our species. Perhaps, Cadet replied, his filaments shifting through thoughtful patterns. That's because your children taught me to see with my heart instead of my compound eyes. Now you're really getting it, she said, offering him an ice cream cone. Want to help plan next cycle's event? I hear the quantum kids want to teach everyone how to play hopscotch across probability waves. Cadet accepted the ice cream, his sensory filaments detecting not just its chemical composition, but the layers of meaning humans embedded in shared food. Will there be glitter? There's always glitter, Dr. Chen grinned. It's in the protocol now. Section 47, paragraph 13. All interspecies children's events must include materials that will turn up in unexpected places for at least 17 cycles afterward. And so, as the last quantum probability settled, and the crystalline walls stopped humming with children's laughter, Cadet realized that he had witnessed something far more significant than a simple cultural exchange. He had seen the future of galactic civilization, and it was wearing friendship bracelets, eating ice cream, and completely ignoring the supposed barriers between species. Perhaps, he thought, that was the real reason humans were so protective of their children. Not because they needed protection, but because they were the ones who could teach the galaxy how to play together. The datasphere from the Galactic Archives, still processing its first ice cream experience, could only agree. In 17 different dimensional frequencies, simultaneously. The end.